Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. I am your host, Matt Kirkner, and I'm going to start our discussion today by going back to a conversation I had a number of years ago with an individual who led the automation effort for a Fortune 500 company. And one of the things that person said to me is he said, we're having such a challenge finding people that understand automation integration as we totally transform our complete manufacturing operation into the world of Industry 4.0. And what he told me was, he said, we're looking for people that understand manufacturing technology. We're also looking for people that understand IIoT, or the industrial Internet of Things. We want people who understand organizational development and how to function in a company. We want people that can manage projects. We want people who understand lean manufacturing and can find a constraint in a manufacturing process and work with us to use automation and other technologies to remove that constraint. And finally, he said, we are looking for people that understand integration, understand how we take a robot and we take a programmable logic controller and we take a conveyor and we take smart sensors and devices, put all of these together into a process so that we can transform our manufacturing operation in this new era of manufacturing. He said, where do you find people like that? And I said, that's a really, really good question. Today, I think we may have an answer to that question, and it comes in the form of a groundbreaking, and I don't use that term lightly, degree program at the University of Wisconsin-Stout. Today, we are joined by the Chancellor of that great institution, as well as the Associate Dean and Director of the School of Engineering. So it's my great pleasure to welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast someone first who's a veteran to our podcast. She's been on before and was one of our really, really early guests. That is Dr. Katherine Frank, the Chancellor of UW-Stout. So Chancellor, great to have you on again. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on and appreciate the support.
Absolutely. We're excited to tell the story. And it's really a story that begins with our other guest today, and just incredible vision and leadership. And that's a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Ding. Dr. Ding, as I mentioned, is the Associate Dean and the Director of the School of Engineering at UW-Stout. Dr. Ding, great to have you on, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chancellor.
Let's begin here, Chancellor. I know you were on a couple of years ago telling the great story of the University of Wisconsin-Stout, a really unique institution in Western Wisconsin. Tell us a little bit about the institution and what makes it unique.
I'm happy to. I'm always excited to talk about Stout. So, for starters, we are not only unique to the UW system, but we're also unique to the state and nationally. So we are Wisconsin's Polytechnic University, and only 3% of the universities in the U.S. have that official designation as a Polytechnic University. And so what does that mean? So our university is very mission-centric, and as a Polytechnic, we are guided by 3 educational principles. So first, we believe in applied learning across all of our programs. So that means hands-on, minds-on approach to learning. Secondly, we're career-focused. So we have an unmatched employment rate for our graduates within 6 months of graduation from Stout in their majors. And that is 99.4% employment rate within 6 months. And that exceeds it really exceeds all numbers. It exceeds the placement rate of any institution in the UW system and any institution across the Wisconsin Technical College system. And I would challenge people to even look nationally and find somebody that exceeds that 99.4%. So we're very, very proud of that. And our third principle is a strong belief in the power of collaboration with business and industry. And that's really important to today's discussion. We have a network of more than 700 business and industry partners that inform really everything we do academically at the institution. So they help us to think about new degree programs. So this automation leadership degree, I know that David will talk about how he was inspired through conversations with others in the business and industry space. They inform the type of equipment that goes into our labs and studios, and they are absolutely critical partners in supplying internship opportunities and cooperative work experiences for our students. So as a polytechnic, we are a critical supplier for the workforce in the state of Wisconsin and beyond, and a major contributor to the economic vitality of the state. So that's what we do at Stout. That's what makes us unique.
Excellent. And I can tell you, as someone who's had now a decades-long relationship in various aspects with your institution, that those aren't just buzzwords, that is truly what defines the University of Wisconsin-Stout. And when you talk about hands-on, minds-on learning, so incredibly important. And that is unique, especially as we look at the differences in the changing face of higher education. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Certainly that job placement rate, and when we look at the cost of higher education and making sure that investment is something that's going to pay off, that is something I know is incredibly attractive, not just to your students, but to their parents and to employers. And speaking of those employers, the way you engage with industry, the way that you let them influence and affect and impact the decisions you're making in what your curriculum is going to look like, what your hands-on experiences are going to look like. All of those things are alive and well at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, as is this brand new degree program that we're going to get into with Dr. Ding. We think about where we started the discussion today, the kinds of things that manufacturers, industrial employers, and really all employers are asking for as they look at talent coming out of four-year institutions, and especially as it relates to advanced manufacturing. People that can integrate, people that understand automation, understand manufacturing technology, know what it's like to work in the workplace, have that hands-on experience and that frontline experience in the workplace as they're going through their education pathway, people who understand what lean manufacturing is. All of these things, Dr. Ding, are things that you and I have talked about tremendously over the course of the years. But I'd be interested, as we start out our discussion about this innovative degree program, tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from employers as they think about talent, and how are those talent needs, I should say, changing in the face of advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0. What are you hearing?
We're hearing a lot from industry. I mean, the mission of our university is not only provide our graduates to basically take over the positions from the current workforce. We are actually going to develop our students, equip them with the current or new technologies. So they're not simply replace someone in the current position. They're going there to lead the advanced journey for manufacturing, to transfer, to go through from the traditional manufacturing to a digital oriented, we call that digital transformation. And we heard a lot of our industry partners from our professional advisory committee talking about the new equipment with a lot of sensors, with this connection capabilities, and how to utilize them to build this system to help our manufacturing, our industry partners. We also heard they are really limited because the lack of skill set the current workforce has. I mean, you and I heard the story about a company needs to use their electrical engineer to bypass some of the so-called connectivity functions to be able to let the equipment run in the really old fashion. Because when they got the new equipment, they say, okay, this is different than ours, but nobody knows how to use it. And that is what Stout take really seriously. And we develop courses and programs to support our industry partners to develop a new workforce. So that's where the idea came from for this new program.
Well, and I think you make some really interesting points, Dr. Ding. The first one being, a lot of times we talk about in the field of advanced manufacturing, how are we going to replace this, we call it the football through the garden hose, the baby boomers that are now reaching retirement age and moving on to something beyond their careers. How are we going to replace all of these people as they transition into retirement? And the answer is that we can't just replace them. We have to replace them with a group of people that are up to speed on modern manufacturing technology, that we certainly can't have people that are, for instance, buying brand new equipment that's embedded with all this smart technology, the ability to predict the future, the ability to measure and improve yield, and measure and improve throughput and reduce downtime. We've got equipment that can do that, the technology that can do that, but it's not not going to do that if the engineer that is implementing that technology is bypassing those systems so that they can make them work in the traditional fashion. So it really is all about creating this next generation of advanced manufacturing talent for a world of manufacturing that we both know is changing at rates that it has never changed at before. So I think that certainly provides the use case and the purpose for this brand new degree, this bachelor's degree in automation leadership. So now that we've kind of created or set the landscape for here's what employers need, Dr. Ding, how would you explain what the learning outcomes and what the content is in this new degree program?
So we actually emphasize three different aspects for the learning outcomes of this new automation leadership program. Obviously, it starts with the knowledge, technique, and skills and tools for digital transformation to solve broadly defined engineering problems. And then we also focus on the design of Industry 4.0 IoT and automation systems. Part of that is the data analytics involved because this new equipment and this digital transformation actually generates tons of operation data. Our students should be able to utilize them to help the company, to help the manufacturing to improve its operation. And then the third one is the leadership, project management, and communication skills. Again, our students graduated from this program and other Stout programs. They are prepared to be the leader for this digital world. And they need to be able to communicate with their community about what's the benefit of automation, the IoT and digital transformation will bring to not only the manufacturing setting, but also the community, how to serve our people better. So that's kind of the three key learning outcome focus this program is on.
And I think the way that you look at this degree program and those three pillars or key points that you make there, Dr. Ding, are exactly right on point. And it feels like they're going to address these, these needs that we identified early on in our discussion, the needs for IIoT, for digital transformation, for teamwork, for lean manufacturing, for base manufacturing technologies. Do you get the sense that you're hitting the mark? And how does this degree program get us to that point where we're delivering to the market the kind of talent that we agree is so necessary in advanced manufacturing?
We're trying our best to develop a robust degree that give the flexibility to multiple potential student populations. This degree can start from high school. So high school students can start taking some of the courses at their community college nearby and also get certifications. I think we're going to talk about that just in a minute. And then they can also join the workforce and taking courses from the two-year college, from two-year technical college to get a manufacturing technician or a mechatronic technician type of associate degree. And then once they have the work experience and the technical level skills, they may consider, okay, I want to be a engineering manager or project leader. And this is where they need that project management skills, they need that communication skills, they need that leadership skills, and they need a more kind of system design skills to kind of incorporate multiple components in the manufacturing system to a so-called cyber-physical manufacturing system. This is where they should consider joining our program. And we give them the opportunity to up-level their skill set, also learn the management and leadership content, as well as working with some hands-on project as a capstone project. So they'll be ready to take the leadership position to lead the company's or organization's digital transformation. And that's how the degree is designed for. It's very flexible, and students or current industry employees or those who has two-year degrees and want to advance to a higher level education, all of them can choose to join these programs at different stage and to become a leader in the digital transformation area.
It really is all about on-ramps and off-ramps. To your point, Dr. Ding, we can have a student who takes courses in high school, all of which would apply to this degree program, but they may decide right after high school they want to go direct to workforce for whatever reason. They have that option. Maybe they want to continue at a community or technical college and gain even more competencies in the field of advanced manufacturing. They have that option, and maybe at that point they want to go in and be a technician or take some other supervisory role as an example in an advanced manufacturing environment, or maybe they want to go on to that 4-year degree and take as much credit as possible. And we're going to get into that from the learning that they've already done, whether it was through their education pathway, whether it was maybe through an employer, and then take credit for that work as they continue their education. It really is. I use the term groundbreaking already. This is just such a unique program. I think the other thing that makes it unique, especially for a 4-year degree, is the tremendous amount of hands-on skills that are embedded in the learning. Dr. Ding, give us a little bit of a sense for the hands-on learning aspects of the degree.
Well, hands-on, hands-on learning, as our Chancellor just mentioned, it's in our DNA. It's in DNA of our institution. For this automation leadership program, we first utilize our collaborative partners, the 2-year tech colleges. They delivered some courses with the hands-on approach, the equipment, as well as the SACA, the Smart Automation Certification Alliance certification, which is also a very hands-on certification. So that is one way we maintain the hands-on elements in the program. And then we also require the students who is enrolled in the 4-year program in this automation leadership program to take advanced professional level SACA certification courses. So they learn how to build a system using different type of IoT or automation components. That's another hands-on approach. And then this program also requires students to complete a hands-on capstone project, a hands-on co-op or internship credit in order to graduate. And so I think this program meets all the hands-on requirements in our DNA, and we're satisfied. And we are looking forward for the students who join this program to get this hands-on education.
And I know the employers, not just in your region, but across the United States, are also looking forward to the students receiving that education and having those competencies and learning outcomes. If we think about those 3 things that you just mentioned and key off of that, the idea that we're now going to have individuals that understand how to integrate all these technologies in the manufacturing environment, not just understand them theoretically, but can take a programmable logic controller with a robot, with another piece of equipment, integrate it, make it talk to each other, create an entire process. And so important. And then have a capstone project where they're actually doing that as part of their education pathway, likely in association with an industrial employer. And finally, that co-op, or what some might call an internship, that opportunity to go out into the world of work and practice their skills as part of their education pathway. I think that, in addition to all this hands-on learning and, of course, the theoretical and gen ed requirements that are embedded in this degree as well, create an incredibly well-rounded individual. And again, it goes back to that pathway of how you create that individual and so many options playing into this path. As I've gotten into the education world over the course of the last 7-8 years, there's a lot of talk of credit for prior learning and advanced credit and so on while you're in high school. And what a lot of students unfortunately find is, yeah, they get credit for that learning, but sometimes it can be a credit to nowhere. So I took this course, but when I get to whatever institution comes next, I've got that credit, but that doesn't apply to a degree program, or there may not be any direct value to the coursework that they're doing once they get to higher education. This is exactly the opposite. And I know that your academic department there at UW-Stout is actively working on transfer and articulation agreements with institutions all over the country related to this degree program. Give us a sense of what that looks like and about how the process of credit for prior learning is going to work specific to this degree, Dr. Ding.
The prior learning credit or integrated program with our university, we look seriously at what exactly this learning experience are. So what we're going to do here is we're going to evaluate the student skill set, and then we're going to also use the third party, the SACA certification system to help us to assess the student skill set. And then if they have meet the certification assessment, if they can pass the certification exam, and then if they have a kind of a showcase of their skill set through project, through employers verification, and through the SACA certification exam, we are going to allow them to utilize this parallel learning experience to substitute some of our hands-on courses, because basically this parallel learning experience and our hands-on courses have the same goal, which is to give students the skill set. So once they meet these type of requirements, we're going to allow them to use the parallel learning credits path to substitute some of the program credits.
And I want to make sure that that last point is really emphasized with our audience. And that is, I mean, there's a lot of aspects of this degree that are really innovative, but the idea that we're able to take third-party credentials from an independent credentialing body, in this case, the Smart Automation Certification Alliance, and as long as the student holds that certification, which they can get a variety of ways. They can get it at a technical college or a community college. They can get it while they're going to high school. They can get it while they're in the employ of an industrial employer. A lot of different pathways. That is what makes, in my belief, this degree absolutely innovative. But the fact that we can take those third-party credentials and apply them toward a bachelor's degree, I mean, that is absolutely earth-shattering in my mind. And I want to make sure that point isn't lost on our audience. I mean, that's just an incredibly innovative way of looking at the future of higher education. Speaking of higher education, Dr. Ding, and I'm going to ask this last question of you before we don't want the chancellor to feel left out, so we got to pull her back into the dialogue. But one last question. Let's say I complete this degree program and I've got my bachelor's degree. Is that the end, or are there other opportunities for a student to parlay that learning even into additional opportunities for themselves?
That is not the end. I mean, one of our goal for the whole institution, and then one of the ABET requirements is we're going to build this lifelong learner. It's not like we got a degree, that's the end. And then what we're going to do is we're going to provide the opportunity for the student who enter this program to take up to 9 credits as a dual level courses. So if you have the ambition to get a master's degree in manufacturing engineering or a master of operation supply management, when you join the BS Automation Leadership Program, you do have the opportunity, any student will have the opportunity to take up to 9 credits. That's going to count towards both the undergraduate automation leadership program or the Master of Manufacturing Engineering and Master of Operation Supply Management program. And I also want to make one additional point when we talk about the general education courses. Our general education courses also will focus on how the technology, some of the general education courses will also focus on how the technology changes impact our human society, the sustainability challenge that related to industry technology development, the new energy, and the recycling of raw materials and other things. So it's not, I don't want our students to think, okay, general education is just something I need to complete. It's also a very important aspect of this program. So the students will have not only the skill set, the leadership, but also the social responsibility that what manufacturing industry is going to support our human society and positively impact our society as well.
I think that's a really good observation, especially the changing face in a really good way of the way that industrial employers are looking at sustainability of environmental responsibility and so on, and being able to embed that type of learning in this type of a learning pathway, really, really important. Also really important for our audience to recognize that, yes, as you're graduating with a bachelor's degree from an incredibly well-respected institution, if you choose to go on to a graduate degree, tremendous amounts of credit come along toward that degree as you continue your education pathway. You referenced Dr. Ding, ABET, and their expectation that we're creating lifelong learners. I'm a huge believer in that, as you know, and this degree program is just another example of how we can create that lifelong learner. So it's a really important aspect of how you've created this program and the pathways that are available to students. I also want to make the point just in case it's lost on our audience, that until a student gets to the University of Wisconsin-Stout for what ends up being their final 32 credits of this degree program, as I understand it, they haven't paid a penny of university tuition, and they also haven't set foot on a university campus necessarily, meaning that they're staying in their home communities, that they're learning at their own technical or community college. They're carrying credits from their high school. They can even complete a lot of this coursework, as I understand it, virtually. In other words, the university level coursework virtually, which keeps them in that home community. So our employers don't have to say, well, or our families don't have to say, we're sending our son or daughter off to a university and hoping they come back. In this case, they can do the learning right in their own backyard. And I think that's a really important aspect of this, as well as we think about how higher education needs to continue to adapt and change, because there are some headwinds, maybe not the right word, maybe it is, but certainly a changing landscape in the world of higher education. Chancellor Frank, we talk a lot about the enrollment cliff, the idea that around that 2008 period, during what we call the Great Recession, the birth rate in the United States dropped significantly. What that means for higher education in the next 5 years is that we're just pulling from a smaller pool of potential students. We also have some of the changing attitudes toward higher education and the financial investment, although I think in many ways Stout has answered that question with the placement rate and the relative affordability. But is this new degree program and all of the on-ramps and off-ramps and opportunities and affordability, is this an example of how higher education has to change and adapt to kind of meet the new world of education in the next decade?
Absolutely, Matt. And just listening to this conversation, I'm just reminded of the power of this degree and the thinking that went into this degree. Like I said before, we rely on our collaboration with business and industry. And this degree is the result of listening to our business and industry partners, listening carefully, having deep conversations with them about their needs, doing our own research and understanding the market, right? And the vitality of this degree, partnering with our technical college partners, making sure that our sectors, our higher education sectors, are talking to each other, really thinking about that, what David just described as really the P20 continuum, because we're talking about students who may be in high school, students who may be in technical college, students who may be in the workplace, right? And you talked about the on-ramps and off-ramps to education. And so we as educators, we're trained to work from where our students are, right? That's what we're trained to do in the classroom. We need to think about that as we work on their educational journey. What does it mean to meet your students where they are, prospective students where they are, along their educational journey, and to make that journey relevant, possible, and productive for them? All of those things went into thinking about and developing this degree. And I think higher education today, and as a polytechnic, we really value this. Once you get these recommendations, you need to move quickly, right? We went from recommendations on this degree pathway to really launch in about a year. That's incredibly, I would say, rapid change for a higher education structure like ourselves. And so I think higher education in general needs to become more nimble, more flexible, faster, to get that product out there, which is this degree pathway, and to become more efficient in all of our areas of operation. And we learn a lot, again, from our industry partners in terms of helping us to get there. So yes, that's a long-winded answer to your question of, yes, this is an example of how higher education can adapt to meet the real needs of our students, our employers, and the state that we reside in.
I love kind of where you started there with the idea of making education relevant, possible, and productive. And when I think about relevance, it's like, oh, let's make sure what we're learning leads to a career pathway. Let's make sure that what we're learning leads to a job that is going to make that investment that we made in our higher education, not just in terms of treasure, but in terms of time worth the time and treasure that we put into that. And so that relevance and making sure that the learning actually applies to what students are going to do when they get into the workforce. I know that's really important to you. The possible part of it is that, if we have credits to nowhere, if we have degree programs that are impossibly affordable, if we make them so rigorous and so time consuming that we don't get a student into the workforce, we haven't really met the goal there. And the productive side of it, we don't need, education is no longer about how much time a student necessarily has to sit in a classroom and put into education. It should be about learning outcomes. It should be about what they can do, what they know, the kind of global citizen that they're going to be as they graduate from whatever their pathway is. And I think this degree program absolutely checks all three of those boxes. I would also tell you, as we look at the approval process, and I followed this program because I've seen it as so innovative from its very inception. And of course, Dr. Ding and I have been talking about this a long time. I mean, it didn't happen on automatic. I mean, somebody had to be willing to take a risk, and that was certainly you and the rest of your organization. Your board of directors, when it went before them, and certainly saw the business case and the use case for it, but had to take a little risk in doing something so unique. Then it went on to the Board of Regents at the entire UW system, and they had to do similar, take similar risk. I say that in quotes because I don't think it's risky, but it is different. And so at every single level, people had to make decisions that are all about the future of education. And I think that is exactly what you've done. That doesn't come easy. And, I know innovation can be challenging. It can be scary at times. And as we talk with a lot of educators, on the podcast, and certainly, when we're out in the field, just talking and chatting with folks about what they're up to, that innovation and that risk taking, like I said, it doesn't come on autopilot. So you've been willing to take the risk. What advice do you have to other leaders in the field of higher education as they consider disrupting and innovating the field of education?
As you said, Matt, you need to be willing to take a risk, right? We celebrate our distinctiveness, and we work to be innovators, right? But to do that in a very, again, responsible way. And I think, it's worth mentioning our Baldrige history. We remain the only four-year university ever. Again, that's another groundbreaking moment, right? When we received the Malcolm Baldrige Award for Quality Excellence. And I bring that up because that focus on planning, assessment, research, quality. We have an office that's named Park that focuses on those areas. It's important to the work that we do, right, in terms of innovating. Right? We are always focused on what it means to be improving. So continuous improvement. We measure what works. We look at what doesn't work. And again, we have a lot of conversations with partners. And so I think my advice is that you need to be willing to take these risks, but you need to understand the platform from which you're functioning, right? And to bring people along the way. So David Ding is a perfect example of a leader in this space who builds capacity as he moves these ideas forward. Because David may be speaking about this degree today, but ask David about the community that helped him to build this. He will talk about the team that supports him, both internal and external to the institution. And that capacity building, right? That ability to bring people along on your journey, to celebrate the successes and to learn from the challenges. It's, again, as David says, it's in our DNA as an institution. Another first and only, we're the only UW system school that's named after its founder, James Huff Stout. And I always come back to this because that means something. There was a great idea that our institution was built on in terms of serving the state and serving the workforce, right? And that is truly in our DNA. And so that past is really important to who we are today, but we're always focused on the future. And that's that planning piece. We're always looking ahead. How can we do better, be better, and anticipate what's on the horizon? But we can't do that without our business and industry partners. So I really think that's what makes us so distinct. That's my advice to others.
I know our educators are going to learn a lot from that answer, including the importance of taking risk, understanding the platform from which you're starting, and then, considering the whole idea of building capacity and building a team and building support. And you already gave Dr. Ding tremendous credit of doing that, not just on his own, but with an entire team of people, and understanding that it really is going to take an entire team to transform education as we look to the future. And you also talk about, as you finish that answer, the importance of making sure that we're pulling and bringing our industrial employers along. And I'm a huge believer that in as much as industrial employers and employers in general need to help influence and lead an institution, in a lot of cases, that institution also needs to help lead those stakeholders into the future. And I think this is a really good example of how you're doing that. Kind of staying on that topic, and I'll ask David this question first, Dr. Ding, and then I'll ask Chancellor you the same question. Dr. Ding, as you're talking to your industrial employers, it's a little bit to me like that old, I'll date myself a little bit, that old Toyota commercial where they say, you asked for it, you got it. They asked for this. Now they have it. What are you hearing from your employers in terms of their reaction to this degree program?
Exciting. It's the one word I will pick for the reaction from industry partners. They were excited when they heard this idea, and they are excited when they hear the news the program is officially approved and launched. And they are also excited to help and support this program in the future. I want to appreciate the compliment from my chancellor, but I also want to see the Chancellor and Provost's office support is critical. If I look back from the day I submit my proposal to the Chancellor and the Provost until the date this program got approved by the Board of Regents of UW system, it's 9 months and 7 days. It's relatively the same as we pregnant a baby, the same length of pregnancy. Now we have this new baby. It is our responsibility to make sure this program to grow stronger and to really perform as what we intend, maybe outperform as what we expected, to help our industry, to help our community. So that is kind of, I feel the responsibility to keep supporting this program. That's very important from our industry partners.
That's a great analogy when you talk about the 9 months and the birth of a child. And in so many ways, and you and I have talked about this, Dr. Ding, it does feel a little bit like that journey. And now, now that it's kind of in line with parenthood, it's an incredible celebration and a great responsibility. So now, we've made the commitments, and you've created this incredible bachelor's degree. And now it's, how are we going to fill the seats, the virtual seats? How are we going to get students excited about this? How are we going to get them to understand and get other institutions to understand the incredible value that this is going to bring? And I know you're working really, really hard on that as you're receiving this incredible feedback from your industrial employers. And Chancellor, I want to ask you the same question. What are you hearing from employers as they reflect on what you were able to do here?
Well, yeah, to extend that metaphor a little bit, we're hearing a lot of congratulations, right? People are excited and happy for us as an institution, but then a lot of thank you, a lot of gratitude, because again, as David and you have pointed out, this depends on a partnership. This is right. So it's going to help our employers. It's going to help our state. It's going to help our educational partners. And, it's going to help our institutions. So it's that reciprocal loop of supporting each other and continuing, I think, to see what the future holds for this degree. So it's about, yes, we want students to experience this program. Hopefully, many of whom will consider going on into graduate programs as well. But just think about the impact that this is going to have, right, in the manufacturing sector and beyond. And then by virtue of association there, what the impact will have on our state and beyond, because this is groundbreaking as a degree anywhere. So Wisconsin is leading the way, right? And so through our many different connections, just think about how we are going to be able to amplify this beyond the borders of our state, as we should be. Right? Be a groundbreaker and a role model in terms of how to move this type of educational career pathway forward. So excited to be the first and excited to share the knowledge that we gain with others.
And we've seen interest generated across the entire United States and even outside of our borders in this degree program, especially given the fact that we have so many different pathways into it. And so we know there's going to be continued tremendous interest on the part of educational institutions, on the part of students, on the part of industrial employers. And to that end, Dr. Ding, for all three of those groups, if I'm a student and I'm interested in enrolling in this program, if I am an industrial employer and I want to understand how my employees can be a part of this, if I'm an educational institution and I have interest in creating some type of a transfer or articulation agreement with the University of Wisconsin-Stout, for each of those groups, where do I go for help and to learn more?
Well, they can contact our university admission office for prospective students. And then also anyone from industry partners or a potential college collaborators, they can just go to our Stout website or Google for the Automation Leadership Program at UW-Stout. That will take you to our program website. And then our contact information is there. We're here 24/7 to support our students, prospective student, and then open to work with our industry partners and collaborative partners from higher education.
We'll be sure, and in the show notes, if you're listening, we'll link up all of the references that Dr. Ding just mentioned. I want to thank both of you, Dr. Katherin Frank, the Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Stout, Dr. David Ding, the Associate Dean and the Director of the School of Engineering, for a phenomenal conversation and for being true disruptors in the field of technical education. Thank you for being with us on the Tech Ed Podcast.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you like this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.